Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are, it is right now. You're right here. My name is Manuel, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. Today is day 48 of the show, and I have to congratulate you for making the best decision of the day to spend some time with me. Let's get started. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last several days, you're aware that President Trump made comments about Robert Mueller after his passing that a lot of people have said are disrespectful, beneath the dignity of the office, and so forth. And I will tell you right now, honestly, I wouldn't have said it. I wouldn't have. But here's the difference between me and Donald Trump. I didn't go through what he went through. Because what people on the left and even some of the so called neutral people are pretending to forget is what the Mueller era actually felt like. Years, not weeks, not months, years of being under investigation, years of headlines, years of insinuations, years of the walls are closing in. And at the center of it all was the Mueller investigation, what should rightly be called the Russia hoax. Now, before we even get into that, let's establish something important about Mueller's record that gets conveniently ignored. This isn't something theoretical. This isn't a partisan spin. This is documented. You see, there were four men in Boston: Joseph Salvati, Peter Limone, Louis Greco, and Henry Tamaleo, who were wrongfully convicted of a 1965 murder. They didn't do it. That's just a fact. And the government had the evidence that they didn't. The government had the evidence of who the real killers were, and that evidence was withheld. These men lost decades of their lives. Two of them died in prison. Now, here's the Mueller connection. During the 1980s, Mueller was the top federal prosecutor in Boston, and he fought to keep these men in prison. He fought to keep them in prison even knowing about the exculpatory evidence. So, understand what we're dealing with here. Not a hypothetical, not a partisan accusation, a real case where innocent men were kept in prison for decades. And as I said, two of them died in prison. And Mueller was a part of that. So let's not pretend that he is this saint wrapped in red, white, and blue, as those who support him want to project him as being. Now, we fast forward, because that pattern, whether you want to call it that or not, matters when you get to what happened next. Let's talk about what the Mueller investigation actually did. Because people love to talk about it in abstract terms, such as rule of law, norms, institutions, but let's make it real. There were people, many people, who got swept up in that investigation. Not charged, not convicted, not guilty of anything, but they still had to lawyer up. They still had to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in some cases more, just trying to get through it. Their lives disrupted, their finances wrecked, their reputations dragged through the mud. That's real. That happened. And what was the end result? After all of that, no smoking gun, no proof of what the media spent years promising was just around the corner, just nothing actionable. And by then, the damage was already done. And here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. The investigation didn't just affect individuals. It arguably paralyzed a presidency. You can make a very strong case that a huge portion of President Trump's first term was consumed, slowed, or outright obstructed by this investigation. Not because something was proven, but because something was suspected constantly, relentlessly, pure tabloid rumors. Now, let's talk about Mueller himself for a second. Because there's this image, this almost mythical image of Robert Mueller as this steady, sharp, incorruptible figure at the center of it all. But then we saw him testify. And suddenly, the image didn't match reality. He seemed, let's be generous, detached, uncertain. At times, not even fully familiar with key details of the very investigation that bore his name. And then you start hearing reports that it was really his deputies running the show, that he was more of a figurehead, signing off. He wasn't steering the ship. Now, if that's true, and again, we're trying to be fair here, that doesn't exonerate him. If anything, it actually makes it worse. Because if you're not fully in command of something that powerful, something that disruptive, then you shouldn't be in that position at all. And this is where I want to address the outrage over Trump's comments. Because the framing from his critics is predictable. This shows a lack of dignity. This proves he's spiteful. This proves the right are hypocrites. And they'll even try to compare it to situations where the left celebrated the death of people like Charlie Kirk. No, absolutely not. Those are not the same, not even close. One is a celebration of a murdered civilian, an innocent person killed in cold blood. The other is commentary, harsh, yes, about a public official who lived a long life and played a central role in events that many Americans believe harmed them. So when Trump reacts the way he does, you don't have to like it, but you can understand it. Because from his perspective, and from the perspective of many of his supporters, this wasn't just an investigation. It was years of persecution, years of pressure, years of suspicion, and most importantly, years of damage with no payoff. Here's the reframe of all this. The left wants you to see this as a question of manners, dignity, tone, respect. But that's not what this is really about. This is about whether the process itself, the investigations, the prosecutions, the pressure can become the punishment. Because we've already seen what happens when the system gets it wrong. We saw it in Boston. Men lost decades of their lives, not because they were proven guilty, but because the system refused to admit it might be wrong. So now the question isn't, why is Trump being so harsh? The question is, what happens when the system can investigate you for years, drain the people around you, disrupt an entire presidency, and never have to say it was wrong? All right, that's enough for today. We'll continue next time. And as always, be useful.